welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show with my co-host, the Brancatus, Yolanda N. Smith, who is on vacation and will be back up for the next episode. Today, I decided to go back in history, not too far back, but just back enough. And let me explain a little bit more detail. I went to one of the best high schools in the state of Georgia. 5A football, we're dominating. 5A basketball, we're dominating. But not only that, we also produce some of the baddest, smartest athletic talent known in the state of Georgia. I am privileged to have on my show today no other than the man himself. And he don't remember this, but I remember telling him my senior year when I saw him, I said, you're going to be really, really good. And he probably doesn't remember that, but we're going to talk about it a little bit. Welcome to the show, my man, the one, the only Mr. Michael Reid. What's up, big guy?
Hey, man, I'm just feeling good because it's always good to see a Trojan, baby.
Hey, notice I didn't say the full name because you know it's going to be some shit, right?
Yeah, hey, here's your good news about this. I was raised in Tornadoville, right? Because my dad coached at Monroe, all right? And I was a physics teacher at Monroe for years and years and years. So I started my whole career as a little tornado. People don't know. So when people from Monroe talk trash to me sometimes, I'm like, dude, I'm more of a tornado than you. But I am a Trojan because that is my route and my path, but I always cling to my original golden tornado roots because, I grew up watching cats play. I was on the field at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old. I was out there watching them practice. I saw them ride on their bus down to Colquitt County and Valdosta, and they only had 30 people and fight all the way to the end and finally lose at the very end when Stanford Rome and all them cats were doing their thing. So, I am definitely a Trojan, but, my roots are in the Bennett. You know how that goes.
There's nothing like us Trojans, man. It's kind of like when we it's so funny when social media came out, there were so many of us on social media, and when you go back and look at all the classmates that we went to school with, and people don't understand how close the schools are down south. You usually go from the junior high right into the high school, especially when it came to Doherty. You went from Doherty Junior High right across the street, like literally across the field, and you was over there. But you guys, we all grew up together. We knew each other. It was probably one of the close-knit families to be in your actual family.
That's for certain right there. And, I'm one of those kids who was busted because I'm a Radiant Springs cat.
So, Mike, tell the viewers who you are. Tell the viewers about yourself, a little bit about the journey, and then we'll talk more about your career and so forth. But give the viewers a little bit of who Mike Reid actually is.
Well, I would definitely say I'm a good down-home, Southern Albanian. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, but I was raised in Albany. When it came time for me to make the decision whether I want to go back to Montgomery or stay in Albany, it was no question I was going to stay in Albany, where I knew my roots were at. My values are from there. How I learned to participate in sports and academics and just do things in general was great. One of the things I love about Albany and having grown up there is that I do believe during the era in which I was raised that the idea that the village raises a child was part of who we were. Because I can certainly tell you, I can't name the number of people who took time and energy and work with me, especially those people who are like, hey, you're going to be okay. So they would spend extra time with me. They would teach me different things about doing things the right way. The older guys, you guys would come in and say, hey, do this, do that, do this. So that community feel is the big defining part of me. From there, I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to get a scholarship to go to the University of Wisconsin. At that point in time, I was the third Albanian to go up there in 4 years. Larry Spurlin went before me. Gary Ellison went Larry went, 4 years before me. Gary Ellison went 1 year before me, and I went the next year coming up there. I was just happy to get a scholarship because people told me I wasn't a D1 athlete. And I was like, I don't buy that at all. I am a D1 athlete. I just needed to prove it. So I went up there with a pretty big chip on my shoulder as a South Georgian going, hey, I'm from Georgia. This is how we ball. I don't know what y'all do, up here in the Midwest, but this is how we do it. And so that served me well. From there, I had a pretty good career at Wisconsin. I'm just keeping things quick and moving along. I majored in computer science. I have to say that I graduated in computer science because if I don't, my mom will get on me about the education. So folks kept me straight on that right there. made all Big Ten on the football team, academic team, was the MVP of our 1986 team. Drafted in the 7th round by Atlanta Falcons. Blessed to play 6 years here with the Falcons. Began my study of martial arts at the end of my first year. And when I retired from football, I thought I was going to go IBM in that route with computer science, but I just decided I wanted to be an athlete and still be and also a coach. To be a high school coach, as you know, is to spend countless hours. To be a college coach is to move around your family over and over and over again. And the pro thing is just the same. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be rooted in one place, just like I was rooted in one place, raise my family, and kind of go forward from there. So for 30 years, I've run a martial arts school. And at this point in time, from a ranking standpoint, I would be a 7th degree senior master in the study of Shaolin Kung Fu. I also studied in Krav Maga, Kung Tao, and Silat, which are Southeast Asian arts from the archipelago. And a wide variety of also internal training. So these days, it's all about just being the best person that I can be, mentoring and helping people as much as I can, and being, as my parents and as my community told me, being who you are, right? That's a big thing around when we were growing up. Don't tell us who you are, show us who you are. So I just want to be who I say I am and try to, help people do what they can do, because that's one of the reasons why I'm on this planet.
Man, that is like so deep. We'll go even deeper than that. So you're from Montgomery, Alabama originally. What brought you to Albany?
Oh, I was born in Montgomery. I was born in the Gump, as they would say. But my parents came to Albany when I was I don't know, 3 years old, 2 years old. Okay. So I've lived there my entire life. I just every summer, like many of us did, I went and stayed with my grandparents. And when it was getting close to high school time, they were like, "Do you want to go to Montgomery?" And I got a lot of friends in Montgomery. I thought I might have been a Sidney Lanier poet, or I would have gone to St. Jude if I had to stay there. But I was like, nah, I'm going to stay right here in the Benny and do my thing. Coach Martin had a pretty good thing. Coach Welch had a good thing going over there. And I wanted to be a part of that.
Man, yeah, you got it right. Coach Welch was really running some stuff at Albany, man. Taking Doherty to a whole different level as far as academics, as far as sports, as far as the whole 9 yards. You had a great career. What were some of the struggles that you encountered, prior to this gorgeous career that you got right now?
Well, I mean, as you know, there always are struggles. You can be an outstanding athlete, but be mired in a situation to where you're not successful. Like at Doherty, I was fortunate because I was a basketball and a football player. Our basketball program, when I was a sophomore, played for the state championship. That was a team when Lionel and those guys were on. Yeah. So I was actually on the varsity as a sophomore. I didn't play very much, but I was on that team, and so I got the experience. I always tell people this right here. Part of the reason why I played collegiate football and part of the reason why I'm in the NFL is because every day when I was a sophomore, I worked to try to stay in front of Lionel James and check Lionel James, and I was too stupid to know I wasn't supposed to be able to guard him, right?
And people don't realize who he was. And
they don't realize that Lionel was 5'7" at best and all state in the state of Georgia in both football and basketball.
He's the baddest athlete probably.
He probably was the best athlete in the state, and so I was working to keep my butt in front of him and check him as a guard. And once again, I'm too stupid to know I'm not supposed to be able to guard. So, but what I was getting at was that there's sometimes you're very successful. Our basketball program, like I said, was very successful. Went to the state championship my sophomore year. We were number one in the state in terms of rankings for the majority of my junior year. And then my senior year, all the talent graduated. Coach Martin left to go someplace else, and Coach Gibbons came in. And so I was in his first class. So, the struggle with that is that Doherty, especially when it came to basketball, we were used to winning. And that first half of the year was a transition. It was rough, right? Doherty was marked as a team that could be beaten. That's their year. Yeah. But the second half of the year, although we didn't have near the talent that we had in the previous years. Now, later on, 2 years later, they were really good at Doherty, but all those cats that were playing with us were sophomores, right? Yeah. So the second half of the season, we get back to being Doherty. We just find a way to win because that's who we are. So sometimes you have good situations and bad situations. We had a whole bunch of mess and stuff taken in. I was playing football. So that we had enough talent on that team before some craziness happened that we probably would have gone 7-3, 8-2 my junior year before they had all that stuff. And then my senior year, we had enough talent on that football team, if it had all stayed there, that we could have competed for a region title. But we didn't get that opportunity because crazy madness happened. Then you go off to college and you start to learn about politics, and you start to learn about opportunities and things of that nature. And for me, it was kind of head to the grindstone. And then in the NFL, coming in as a 7th round draft pick is not the normal best way to make it into the league. 1st round, 2nd round, yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
7th round is, you're lower on the totem pole, and you got to do more earning to be there. And so it can be nerve-wracking in the NFL when you know you're on the bottom of the roster, because every week people are coming and people are going. I remember finally one of the vets says, he's like, "You're okay. Just know you're gonna be all right." And go. But after that first year of doing that, I was like, I don't ever want to be in this position again. So let me play my way off the bottom of the roster and hold up the roster a little bit. So the biggest thing for me is, you like when people believe in you,
right?
But when they don't believe in you, you sometimes have to believe in yourself and then prove to them that you belong. So I've been a person who's always been probably a better athlete than people thought I was.
Right.
Or didn't think of me as, ran faster than they thought I could run, jump higher than they thought I could jump, way more competitive than they thought of, because I smile a lot. But I always tell people, don't let the smile fool you. When it's go time, it's go time. So that's how that goes.
So Mike, when you was in high school, I remember my senior year, and I remember you coming into the weight room when we had it in the back of the garage.
Oh, I know where that's at. It never moved.
Yeah. And I remember telling you, you probably don't, because it's been so many years ago. And I remember telling you, I said, "Hey, you're gonna amount to something very special." You just had that leadership about you. You just had that charisma about you that never say die. And you're right. I remember when we went through that transition at that school. I won't get into it, but it was devastating to me because of the fact that the one coach in particular was my mentor.
Right.
I remember getting that phone call because I spent my summers in Indianapolis, and I remember the protests when I got to school. I remember people saying, "Hey, what are you going to do? Are you going to do this?" And he reached out to me, was like, "Hey, you're getting ready to get a scholarship. Like you gotta, this happened to me. I have to deal with it. You need to worry about your career." And I remember that year of 81, it was crazy. I mean, my whole life seemed like it shook, but now you guys had to take over the torches. And I remember approaching you going, "Hey, you got to take over this." The whole coaching staff is just like going down. And it was like, I was praying as I went off to school. I was like, I hope Mike and the guys take over this legacy that we have in this school system. When that happened, how did you guys recuperate from that? Because I know we left at that time and it was still in disarray. We're no longer the 5-star champions. Lionel James had gone on to Auburn. Stanley Floyd, you remember Stanley?
Of course I remember Stanley.
Yeah, Stanley, world fastest man. I mean, these are some outstanding athletes that came from our school. So now we got this disarray. And how do you gather the troops? Because they're looking up to you.
Well, you got to think about this. I mean, so as a sophomore, because if you don't forget, although 9th grade was high school, 9th grade was in the junior high schools for us. Right. So as a 9th grader, so the 10th grader was your first year at the school. So my first year at the school is as a member of the Trojans, and I think I got moved up when the B team stopped playing or JV stopped playing. That's when they moved me to varsity at that particular point in time. I didn't play, but at the same time I was on there and I was out there on the field. So don't forget, I've been a part of Albany sports literally since I'm 3 or 4 years old. Okay. I've watched players. The only team I didn't know a whole lot about was Westover, but because
I was going to say Westover.
Westover. My mom's at Albany High, dad's at Monroe. I know I'm a part. That's a part of who I am. I've been watching games at Field Stadium my whole life, so I understand the rich history of athletes that we have had in Albany and the success that some of those athletes have had over time. I wasn't about to go out myself and not try to represent that level of play because that's all I know. Now the hard part was after all that Crayton went through, we had a terrible year that year because we lost half of our team. The majority of I guess you'd say of those who came back to the team were people whose parents finally said, you know what, the mess is the mess, but that ain't your problem, and you're going back on that field. Okay,
Right.
and that's what said to me. That's great that you want to be supportive and this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, things have happened, and those things are adult things that need to be dealt with. But I need you back on that field to take care of your things.
Right.
And truth be told, some people didn't get back quick enough, probably, and it probably cost them some scholarship money and some stuff
And
like
you
that.
hit a dead on the money. And I remember that. I remember even the track and field team. It was only the only people went to state was me and a guy named Frederick Seymour. And I was like, man, like what happened to this? What happened to the school? But go ahead, finish telling me more about how it affected you guys and how you was able.
So it affected, it affected that. Basketball wise, it didn't affect us because the same coach was there, and then we had to transition from one coaching group to the other. Football wise, it was difficult because it threw the rhythm of Doherty High School football off. It took those guys who, the guys who should have been following you, who were moving up, was a good group of guys. And as you know, in our division back in those days was Tifton and Valdosta and Colquitt
Roberts,
and everybody you could think of, Tifton, Thomasville, Central Thomasville, all that stuff. You have to be ready.
Yeah.
So here's a situation where that group of guys that should have been, like I said, probably 7-3, that maybe that my junior year, maybe win 8 games or something like that, and then make that run the next year, didn't get that seasoning. They sat out. They were out. They were this, that, and the other. And so a team that had far inferior talent than what Doherty had put on the field went out to play. Coach Welshman said to me, we went to Valdosta, and they beat the fool out of us that year, as you can imagine, because we had everything going on. And then the next year, we were getting ready to play them. And he looks at me, he goes, we got a shot this year, Mike. And I looked at him and said, well, Coach, I thought we had a shot last year. He just looked at me and smiled. He said, you would. Because my thing is, why play the game if I can't win? If I don't think I can win, that now, not in a braggadocious way, but although we lost a lot of games my junior year, whoever was lined up in front of me took a lot of whoopings. So that's just how that goes.
So now, Mike, you're getting ready to go off to college. When did the college aspect start coming in? Because now you got a strong support with your family, but and Albany people need to understand we run a village there.
Right.
When did the transition actually take place, and when did you start focusing more on your college career? Because you're definitely wanting to stand out. The school is in disarray. The team is in disarray. When does the team come out of the picture, and then you start focusing on what your mom said about you and your future from this moment?
You know what? I don't think I ever focused on me.
Really?
I don't think I ever focused on me. My thing was be the best player I could be and help my teammates. Okay. Because I was always a team guy. I was never really worried about what the individual accomplishments were. I wanted to win and be successful, and I figured you get accomplishments if you do them. But right. I don't think I ever ran around saying how many passes did Mike Reid catch. I didn't play the defense in high school. If I played defense in high school, I probably would have never left the South. But because then I would have been the right size to go somewhere.
Right.
Then Georgia and Georgia Tech and Auburn would have recruited me as a linebacker. They wasn't going to recruit me as a tight end or a split end, right? They said you can come walk on with it. So, matter of fact, that's what Georgia told me when they saw me at the Falcons thing. They was like, "Hey, Mike, we made a mistake on you." And I just smiled and said, "Well, I appreciate that." I appreciate you guys telling me that you made a mistake on me. That's all good. But at the end of the day, it wasn't about me. I was about my team and my teammates, and I wanted to win. I like winning. I guess, some people want to see if they're a football player, they want to make every tackle. They want to do this, that, they want to do it for themselves. I want to do that because it's going to help us win. I'll make less tackles, make less catches if we win, because winning is what the team sport's all about.
Right.
And then putting your together.
What school did you really want to attend? Because I remember when I was there, everybody wanted to go to Florida A&M or Florida State, because people fail to realize Albany sits on that Florida borderline. So that recruiting curve is there. Did you have any school in particular? Because I know
I wanted to be an Auburn War Eagle, baby.
Really?
Yeah. Where did Lionel and Pratt just go? Lionel went from my school. Pratt, people forget that Pratt, who passed away over at in Auburn, went to Auburn that same year. So we had 2 cats from Albany in the backfield. Remember his brother, Lionel's brother, Tim, had just played basketball over at Auburn. So Auburn was, I'm an Alabama kid born there, right? And in Alabama, you either Alabama or you Auburn. And I was much more Auburn inclination. I liked Auburn's football program. I liked how they played. So if I had have chosen and gotten anywhere I would have gone, that's probably where I would have taken.
What happened to get you to Wisconsin?
Wisconsin recruited me. Once again, Larry Sperling goes to Wisconsin. Larry tells, the coaches about me a long time ago. And then Ellison goes to Wisconsin. One of the things I remember Coach Jeter asked Gary, so he's like, I want the best player in Albany, but I need someone who's not a knucklehead. And so Gary told him, he goes, well, and actually he gave me, he gave Gary a thing to fill out. And Gary brought that right to me. He goes, Coach told me that, to find the best guy who will actually go to class. and so he handed that to me. And they followed me, and I felt like of the schools that recruited me, they were the one that did the biggest job of recruiting. Okay. Like for instance, I was offered one more D1 offer, and that was South Carolina. But South Carolina came to me at the very end and offered me a scholarship and told me that they did not know I was a senior, which I thought was the craziest thing on the mankind, because Don Norman, who also got a scholarship to South Carolina, and
I was going to say that he was our quarterback and then converted to punter.
No,
right?
Chris was your quarterback, and Chris got a scholarship to South Carolina the back who then got turned into a punter.
Right.
His brother came out with me. So Don and I have been together since first grade. But I was like, okay, you've been sitting over here watching Chris Norman. You've been sitting over here watching Don Norman. And you're going to tell me that I played so poorly that you didn't recognize that I was a senior? So, what happened was they missed on whoever they were trying to get at tight end. And then someone said, well, who's got the next best tight end in the region or whatever? They said, well, Luther does down in Doherty. And then they came back and offered me. I just didn't know how that was going to work out, because I thought that was not genuine. I did not think that they really thought I was a junior. So then Tennessee State offered me a scholarship, and I thought about going to Tennessee State, but they were having some problems then with money in terms of financing the sports group. And also when I went to TSU, I partied, had a great time, and realized that this might be a hard place for me to study.
At least you're being honest.
Hey, that's the truth. I'm telling you, and I'm a good student, right? But I was like, this is a little too much fun right here.
Right. So when you said you went there with a chip on your shoulders, what made the chip be on your shoulder when you went to Wisconsin?
Because I was overlooked. You'll know this because you know the names. Ducky Walls and his cohort both said there are no D1 prospects in Albany, Georgia this year. And I'm like, really? Okay. Wow. I think I'm a D1 guy. But they were like, no, there's no D1 prospects in Albany this year. I've never let him forget that. Every time I saw him, when they inducted me into the Albany Sports Hall of Fame, I talked about that.
Right. Right.
So my thing is, you know what? I'm okay if you don't believe in me. I'll show you. And so when I got up there, all I wanted was the opportunity to show that I could play. That's it. And I didn't know where I was going to play, didn't know what position I was going to play. I just knew that whatever it was going to, if they'd have played me at receiver, I'd have played a receiver. They'd played me tight. It wouldn't have mattered. I just knew that I was going to play, or I was going to show people that I belong. Like the same thing happened to me in the NFL. After being there for three years, I thought that the first year, it's the NFL, it is what it is. The second year, I felt like I really earned my way onto the team. But as the coach told me, he said, Mike, you had the best camp of all the linebackers. He goes, but you're just not in the plans. Okay, that's just the way it is. Wow. And then when Jerry Glanville got there in my fourth year, he gave me an opportunity to play, because he was pretty much like, either you can be this way, play this way and start for us, or I'm going to cut you. And I didn't want to leave. So, my thing at that point in time was to demonstrate that I belonged there. And I wanted to prove to myself that I belonged in this league playing, and that I could compete with everyone else. Because some people, what's right for it? Some people will come down to their level of competition, and some people will rise up to it. I've always been a guy who, if the better the competition is, the more you'll get out of me, because I want to meet that level. Even if you think I can or can't, I feel like I should be able to do that.
So, Mike, when did the NFL opportunities set in? Like, what year of your college career? And what do you think was the reason that the NFL start to look at you?
Well, so if we go back in time, I can't. Sometimes I get these years mixed up. I was there for 5 years because I was redshirted my first year. I think it's in my second year of playing that I don't start that year. But I start. I come in like in the second game against Missouri and have a pretty stellar game, and then they put me in as a starter for the next 7 games, and I lead the team and I lead the conference in tackles. And then what did I break? I broke my thumb, so that knocked me out. And then later on, I played out of position, but I also demonstrated I could play outside. And then my senior year, I set a single season record that still stands at Wisconsin, which is 101 solos, 156 tackles total for the season, which I think is 7th all time or something like that. Right. And then 101 solos, which still stands as the most solos in any one year by anybody. So
congratulations on that.
And so with that being said, having and that's in the Big Ten, playing against Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, blah blah blah. So it wasn't against, I was playing against not good competition. I was playing good competition. So there was no doubt whether I could perform. What you didn't get into is what's your athleticism like? How fast do you run? What do you lift? I never valued lifting weights. I lifted weights because I had to, right. But it wasn't something that meant a lot to me. Like track and field, I didn't particularly like as much because it wasn't of concern to me how fast I ran, as long as I ran fast enough to do what I needed to do. So that's not the right mentality for being an athlete, particularly these days. Yeah. But that was my mentality. I'm a team sports guy as opposed to an individual sports guy. Okay. If I were a track athlete or a wrestler, then I'd be more interested in just me. But as a football player and a basketball player, those are team games. So my thing is, I'm as fast as I need to be.
Right.
I'm as, if I gotta, once again, I'm a sophomore, and I'm Lionel, he nicknamed me Big Cat a long time ago because he's like, what's this big old guy trying to guard me, whatever. But my point of saying that right there is that you couldn't tell me I wasn't supposed to check him.
Right.
Right. Could I? No.
Well, people fail to realize he was the man. And if you can level up to his competition, you was just as good.
Well, I would never say I was just as good as James, as I would call him. But at the same time, he was always a mentor because he was 2 years ahead of me. So I saw Lionel in middle school. I saw Lionel in elementary, middle, and high school. Okay. So there was no fear of competing against Lionel. It was just like, it's James today. You got to do all that you can do. He still may beat you, but you just got to do what you got to do. So that idea of,
did they have the combines when you was getting drafted?
No. Oh, combines? Yeah, they had combines.
So did you get invited?
Yeah, I got invited to the combine. So
how'd you do?
I was probably average. Don't forget, when I'm in the combine, I'm not juicing, but there's a lot of juicing taking place. Okay. So you could tell if you look at the athletes who was juicing and who wasn't. And the majority of the guys who were at the upper end, they were juicing. Okay. I'm not saying everybody, because that's not true. Some people just naturally got what they got. But you could look at some body types and be like, okay, that kid right there is doing what they're going to do. So I made it NFL because of versatility. I could play all 4 positions. The ability to think, because I knew the whole defense. I knew where I fit in. You can't play fast if you don't know what to do. Right. I could play fast because I knew what to do. Right. Okay. And I could walk up to the line, look at the set, look at the splits, look at the down and distance, and I could eliminate half or 95% of the playbook that was being thrown at me and focus on 4 plays. If you focus on 4 plays, you're going to react a whole lot better than if you're playing 105.
What's the difference between you just focused on something? What's the difference in transition with your intellect of the game versus what you see now at the positions and so forth that you was playing at?
Well, you will see that let's just be clear. Every 10, 15 years, the level of athleticism goes up. That's just the way it works. Okay. Training gets better, nutrition gets better, athletes get bigger, stronger, faster. They maximize. Put it this way, when you were coming along, there weren't any linemen running 4.7, 330 pounds of athletic male, 6'6", running 4.7, 4.8. That didn't happen. Right. but it exists now. You also didn't have linemen pulling hamstrings.
You got
So
that right.
what it comes down to is that, particularly at the elite levels, you're going to have athletes who have phenomenal athleticism. But what's the coaching staff sitting around doing every week? They're plotting for ways in which they can get that athlete out of position or take advantage of their thing. So the better players still have to think, right? They still have to understand and have the savvy of the game. Ray Lewis was a great linebacker, right? Because he studied the game and he had the athleticism to make all the plays.
Right.
But if he doesn't study the game, he's still a great player, but he wasn't going to make all the plays that he made because he was a student of the game, right?
Right.
You know, I played with 21, with primetime, right? Deion, in his first couple of years, was just being an athlete, playing the game, but they taught him what? You got to study. And so later on in his career, he kept his athleticism, but now he was a student of the game.
And what was it like playing with him when he came on the field?
Deion, man, you know, Deion's a great teammate. That's the first thing. You know, if you played with Deion, you probably think he's a great teammate. You know, if you played against him, maybe you don't think he's such a great person on the team. But Deion was always responsible for what was taking place. Also, Deion actually cares about his teammates and who's injured and how they're feeling, that type of stuff like that. Right. But I will say this: there was never anybody that I played with that had his level of athleticism to where a coaching staff would just say, like Jared would say, "You just take yours, and we'll worry about everybody else." And that's what Deion would say. I got mine.
Right.
You didn't think about whoever that was. Jerry, Michael, didn't matter. They were going to be shut down that day. Because throwing the ball at Deion and not being perfect is the recipe for disaster.
You thought it was like, I'm glad he's on our team.
Hey, man, I saw Deion take a pick against Seattle, and I swear to you that when I saw him running the ball back, it seemed like everybody else on the field was just moving in slow motion while he weaved his way through. And that's not an exaggeration. You know, just you remember the name, a guy named Don Beebe that played for Buffalo?
Yeah, the wide receiver.
Yeah. Well, Don Beebe was his special teams was his big thing, but Don Beebe was a 4-2 guy. I watched Deion just suck him up, ran it down like he wasn't moving. Right. You know, good example. Ron Brown, who played for the Rams, finished third in the Olympics. We kicked the ball off. Ron Brown catches it. The sea just opens up, and Deion's playing safety, so he's coming toward him while Ron Brown's running full speed the other way. I watched Deion turn around flat-footed and go run Ron Brown down at the 5-yard line or 2 or 5 yard line. I watched Ron Brown's teammates laughing at him as they picked him up. Dog, Deion just ran you down. You're supposed to be the fastest man in the world.
when you saw Deion's potential, did you automatically say that's a Hall of Famer?
That early in someone's career, I probably wasn't the way I was thinking. His level of athleticism obviously warrants that. But what made him a Hall of Famer was being able to do him over an extended period of time for several different organizations. Now, was he a bad man? Yeah. Okay. You know, don't forget, before Deion coming out of FSU, there was Bobby Butler. So Deion learned from Bobby at the Falcons. And before Bobby Butler, there was Bobby Jackson, who played at Albany High School.
Another Georgia boy.
And he played for the Jets, for those who don't know. So I'll give you.
So when you look at, we're going to wrap up the part about the football career, because I want to talk about something even more passionate to you, which is your martial arts careers, which I had no idea. But when you look at football right now, what's changed?
Well, I think at this point in time, particularly when you start to get to the higher levels of play, that it's truly an athlete's game now. I think if you go back in time, you could be a really good football player.
Right.
But they don't do enough hitting now in the preseason or for the NFL or in the prep work for college for you to demonstrate, if you're not a great athlete, that you're a really good football player. You see what I'm saying? And there's a difference between being a great athlete and being a really great football player. Okay. Football players just tend to find their way to the ball or they get the ball and score. So right now, you got to be really good in your T-shirt and shorts. You got to look good, run good, for them to take the investment that you might be okay. If your stats and stuff don't look right, they're not going to make that investment in you to give you that opportunity. I'm just sorry. It's just the truth of the matter, unless you really know somebody. So that to me is the biggest difference, is that now you got to be an athlete first who plays football.
Right.
Whereas before you could be a football player who happened to be a good athlete.
That's crazy. So moving forward here, your career is just like, wow. But all the Trojans have wow factor careers. Let me make that clear. We all have that wow factor career. Martial arts, take me down. And this is why I say this. This is what tripped me out, Mike, about you. I had no freaking idea you was in martial arts. I never seen you walk around with a geek on or breaking a brick in school. None of this. I seen you playing basketball, seen you playing football, everything else. Like, well, I looked at social media, I'm like, when did he start being a black belt in karate? Take me down that road real quick, because it's something that you've been passionate about.
So I've been passionate. There are two things, and then people have heard me talk on this before, but there's two things that I really wanted to do when I was a kid. One, I wanted to be a professional football player. My dad, shout out to him, played 1 year with the Boston Patriots a long time ago. And then Uncle Sam called him away to go serve in the military. And then when he came back from that, Dallas called him up, and he turned down the Cowboys to go be a teacher because teachers made more money and had better benefits.
Really?
That's like early 60s, right?
Okay.
So it's a long time ago, right? So, but that just shows you how much the sporting world has changed. So being a football player, especially since my dad was a coach and I was around it, was always something I wanted to do. But now you realize my family educated me that that's something that you might work your way toward, but don't let that be your only goal. Let that be the result of your work, but be prepared to do other stuff. And so I always prepared for that. And if it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. And then my other childhood dream was to be a Shaolin Kung Fu master. And you grew up in Albany, so you'll understand this. It's Wednesday night. It's Lawrence Welk, followed by Little House on the Prairie, which I did watch. Those who don't know it, and Little House on the Prairie is a good show. And then there was David Carradine and Kung Fu.
Right.
Now, I love that Kung Fu series. But people say, well, you like the fighting. I said the fighting was cool. I mean, what kid didn't want to see some fighting? That's just how they go. I said, but what I loved was the connection between teacher and student, between Master Po and Grasshopper. Okay. And the fact that Kwai Chang Kang was in America,
right,
across the world from his homeland, and he was utilizing these theories and concepts and lessons that Master Po had taught him in his real life.
Right.
And he was like, wow, this is what martial arts really is. So I thought about doing martial arts when I was a kid, didn't have time, had too many sports. I got to college and I thought I was going to do martial arts there. Between football and the frat and computer science, there wasn't no time.
And partying.
Oh, well, that came.
Let's keep it real.
Those who don't know, that's all good. All right, so with that being said, that came with it. I did get some partying in, but I got way more time in the computer science lab. Got to get that in. All right, and then when I got done with my first season with the NFL, the season ends in '87. It's January of 1988, and I go, you know what? I finally have the first opportunity to actually go and do martial arts. And so I said, I like animal styles and weapons because I've been watching Kung Fu theater and black belt theater my whole life, and that's what I like. And so I looked at the double-page book, and I find maybe 3 Kung Fu schools that are in town, and I talk to each one of them, and then I decide where I'm going to go. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start here, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go someplace else. And I never left that school. I did 20 years up under them before I made my own thing, and then I joined a bigger group about 5 or 6 years. And then stylistically wise, Shaolin Kung Fu was my base. It's where I started, and that also includes the study of the internal arts such as Tai Chi, Bagua, Xingyi, Qigong, and meditation. I then added in the study of the arts from the archipelago, Kung Tao and Silat, and that changed my mindset quite a bit because what my Kung Tao instructor said to me, he goes, Mike, you've been trained classically and all this other stuff. He goes, but every technique I've ever been taught is for killing somebody. And so what I learned was that all the things that that I had were the same things, but the intent with which you use it is important. Now, let's be clear. The last thing that a killing art wants to do is be in a confrontation, right? Because the odds of someone getting hurt are really, really high. So what I also learned from that is that the best thing you can do as a martial artist is find a way not to fight. Find a way to utilize your mind to solve your problems, okay? Better to talk to someone and put a smile on your face and, you know, buy them a beer or whatever it is than to have to feel like you got to knock someone in the mouth. So give people their space. But also, as I was raised in Albany, you have to defend yourself when it's time to defend yourself. If you won't let people, if you won't stand for nothing, then people will just what? Walk over you.
Walk over you, yeah.
You know, so I'm not one to let people walk over me. You know, I'll smile and probably be a little more lenient than most people. But at the same time, there comes a point when that line back in the old days is drawn in the dirt. And at that point in time, you know, you just got to do what you got to do. Not that I'm advocating fighting. I'm not. I'm just saying you have to be willing to protect yourself. And that's still something I preach and teach to all my students. You hopefully never have to use it, but you have to be willing to. And the person who you're dealing with needs to know that when they look at you, that part of you is in there, okay? And that we don't know who's going to win or who or lose, but we do know that there's going to be a price to be paid. And that's normally enough for most people to leave you be as long as you conduct yourself in the right way.
Now, I noticed on your social media the other day, I didn't get a chance to really get deep into it, but you're also studying almost like the chakra type
well,
meditation?
That's part of the internal training that we do. So my internal training would be things like Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation. And then I also have a big study in what's called Tanaga Dalam, which are the arts of Southeast Asia. And then I also have a medical Qigong teacher, Dr. Love, down in Florida, who is the lineage holder of a system. And so all these things, let me back it up. At the end of the day, we're human beings. And no matter what system or modality that you study, you're a human being. And so how your body works, how the energy aligns in your system, your conscious awareness and your growth, it's the same. It's just everyone calls it by different names. Now, what I focus on and what I work on a lot is the alignment of the body and making the spiritual unit that you have as a person the best it can be, so that then you can connect to that which is outside of you. Okay, whatever dogma you choose, that's not my job to choose what you believe in, right? It's my job to help myself and help all my students put themselves in the best possible position, the best alignment, the most energetic alignment, the most mindful alignment, so they can then make their connection to what they believe in. Okay. Now, some people look at me and go, well, how can you? I'm like, look, that's not my job. That's not my calling. My calling got to do with the understanding of these motions, movements, breath, energy, conscious awareness, connection. And then it's my students' choice, just like it's my choice to choose the path beyond that makes the most sense for us.
Mike, what do you think is wrong with society right now? And it's a two-part to this. We go back to what we talked about, Albany, Georgia, the village. We've seen evolution take place, 80s, 90s, 2000, computers. We can now talk to somebody to live over in another nation at the drop of a push of a button. But we also seeing dysfunctionality at its high. Give me your take on that.
Well, that's a big question, right? Because there's not a simple answer to that question. One, we live, like every country, in a locale that has a certain set of programming that's taking place. And if you don't believe that, go to other places in the world and you'll hear a different set of programming than you hear at each different place. So we affected, I do believe, by that. There was a certain set of programming that was being taken place when we were growing up. Okay. We also were limited to just that programming. Right. There was no FaceTime. You didn't have a friend in Ireland. Heck, when my kids were growing up, I'd look up and they'd be talking to someone on a video game, playing with someone in Europe, playing with someone in South America, playing all over the place. So they're affected by a bigger world group. The biggest thing to me right now is, how should I say this?
Go ahead.
I grew up in a village where people cared about each other. The majority of my life, as I have moved from place to place, I was lucky if I just knew my neighbor next door. Maybe two people in the neighborhood I actually really knew.
Right.
Where I grew up, you know, people knew me. People knew I was Herman Reid and Rebecca Reid's son, no matter where I went. I had people discipline me and correct me. I know your mama. I know your daddy. Yeah. Okay. All right. I know this right here. You need to straighten it up. Your parents wouldn't approve of that. You know, people you had no idea. Now, if you go to tell a kid, you know what, why don't you do this a different way? You don't know what the outcome of that's going to be.
Yeah.
So I think I understand it, because there's so much negative stuff taking place when people talk to someone or try to abduct someone. I mean, we played outside the whole day. There wasn't nobody coming to abduct nobody.
Yeah.
I don't recall. I'm certain that someone in Albany was abducted, but at the same time, I don't ever remember hearing anything about that. You just had to be home when the street lights came on.
Right.
Right. So our world has modified itself and changed. And I think to some degree, we have lost some of the commonality and some of the village. And so now, instead of being a village, we're each person living off on his own. And, you know, that makes it a little bit more difficult. And we don't, this is based upon my own training and so forth. Now, we don't take downtime for ourselves. Our world is like this.
Yeah. Constantly.
So we don't take time to fellowship with each other. You want to know what I've learned? The most important thing is,
what's that?
Like right now, you and I are having a moment, and it's going to be shown to some other people, but it's still our moment. You and I are talking. We didn't talk to each other in a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and what's happened in the past doesn't matter anymore. What I get to share with you and what you get to share with me is this moment. I don't think that people cherish the moment enough. I don't think people really realize that what I'm really doing is not running around trying to do 6,000 things and post this on social media and do that. What I really need to have is meaningful relationships and meaningful time with people. Okay. That to me is the most important thing. My health and my ability to have meaningful experiences and relationships with people. The rest of the stuff, it kind of come and go. Money comes and goes, right? You know, most people make some money, lose some money. Most people do some other things, but my ability to have my health and my ability to have a meaningful conversation and to have positive relationships with people, that's what's priceless. Because at the end of the day, when you're laying on that bed, okay, as we say down in deep South Georgia, you know, it's time for that dirt nap, okay? Yeah. All you're going to be thinking about and remembering is what? The moments that you had, the experiences that you had, the people that you had, if you're so blessed as to have your mind capable to do that. Okay, because obviously we know we have some things that take place right now that can ruin our memories and so forth. But we get to keep that, then that's what you're going to remember. You're not going to remember if you bought a Gucci watch, you know, right. If you know, I had a Corvette, you know, okay, that's great that you had a Corvette. What you're going to remember is who came and saw me when I was sick. Yeah. Who took care of me? You notice what I said, when I was sitting outside crying at 9 years of age and Larry Sperling came and spent time with me, I've never forgotten that. Right. There was no involved with that. That was one person taking time out of his day to check on another human being. And I've never forgotten that. Never. And although Larry's not here right now, I can never
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I never forget that. Because that's who he was. And you know Sperl, so that's how Sperl was. He was a bad man. He wasn't somebody you wanted to upset or piss off. Right. But he had a lot of passion in his heart, and he loved people. He affected the University of Wisconsin. Now, I'm speaking on Larry right now. He affected our group of people, although he was a grad assistant when I got there. Right. So that group of people who came before me that he was the captain of for 4 years, and then even my group that was still there, he affected all of us because of what he had to go through by being one of the first Black athletes from the South up there during that era. All right. And then teaching us how to do the right thing, how to do what we should do, you know. And Larry told my mama, although, he didn't have to do that much, but he said, I'm going to take care of him. And so he watched out for me. Same thing he told a couple of parents of some people here in Atlanta. And what he told Gary's mom, same difference. I'm going to take care of them. And so he went out of his way. He made sure that you did what you were supposed to do. If you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you were going to hear about it.
You was going to hear about it.
Oh, no, Larry, you wasn't going to hear about it on the phone. You were going to hear from Larry face to face, okay?
Yeah.
Homeboy. I say, homeboy, come here. Let me talk to you.
Before we wrap up,
Yes,
let
sir.
me first say I am deeply glad that a former Trojan came on to share his story to the masses. I saw you when you came on the campus there. I watched your career. I've always watched your career, watched all the Trojans because we are a village. We've always been a village. Before we wrap up, leave us with something positive.
I think that what I just said is probably the thing to leave you with. If there's something to be concerned about in life, be concerned about your health. And if you're so blessed to have it, be appreciative of it. And if not, be appreciative of whatever you can do. I would tell you to tell someone you love them each and every day. Give someone a hug. Encourage someone to be better. And then actually don't run around thinking about all the things that could happen. Be in the moment. That's the thing about athletics that I love, being in the moment. And then treasure the relationships and the moments that you spend with people, because you don't what? You don't get them back.
Don't get them back. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been no other than Mr. NFL, Mr. Darty High, Mr. Wisconsin. The list goes on. My true Darty High Trojan and brother for life, Mr. Mike Reid and the Andre The Beast Crayton.